And I hope that you've also found the setting for this year's conference really inspiring, and that days 1 and 2 have given you a flavour of some of the challenges afoot at the international, UK and indeed local scales. And I was going to show you a slide of the interpretation board that's just outside the venue, so I encourage you all to go and take a look, and I'll just read the passage to you quick because you can't see it. So it does say, as a sort of parting paragraph on the board outside, it says, "Keeping the fens dry. Draining the fens has taken man 2,000 years, but the challenges involved in keeping them dry of peat shrinkage, siltation, tidal surges and sea level change are as real as ever." So I think that gives a little bit of a sense of the challenge that we still have in this landscape, and a really nice setting, hopefully, for the discussions that we're going to have today. So I really hope that today you'll find useful. It's a little bit different in flavour to the days that we've already had, and I hope it'll be useful in discussing and finding a bit of a collective way forwards for some of the issues that we're going to touch on. And I really just wanted to take a couple of minutes this morning to kind of introduce you to the programme and to update you on some of the news from the programme, because I appreciate that we haven't really kind of reflected on us as a host and kind of why we're here and why we've got you all together. And also then I'll finish with some housekeeping before I send you all on your way for the day. So, as you can see behind me, there are some lovely photos of our wonderful team. And I was going to get them all to stand up and say hi, but unfortunately, due to illness and various other issues, some of them aren't even here in the audience to stand up and wave to you. So I'll gloss over this one quite quickly. But yeah, myself, I'm Emma Hinchcliffe. I'm Director of the Peatland Programme, and I'm based up in Edinburgh. And we have the team spread all around the UK, covering kind of UK-wide peatland policy, science and practice issues. So many of you will have dealt with Jane, our wonderful, wonderful programme manager, who is up at Sessions House, so can't even stand and wave. But Jane has done an absolutely fantastic job at pulling this conference together, almost single-handedly, I have to say. So a big thank you to Jane for that. Many of you will know Clifton, who is here, who is our current programme advisor, and Clifton is unfortunately retiring at the end of this year, so we're going to be losing Clifton. So very, very sad to be seeing him leaving the programme. And we have kind of distilled Clifton's role into a policy lead role, which is the main focus Clifton has had. So you might have seen we've recently had out for advertised this policy lead role, and I can say we successfully recruited this week, and we will have someone joining the team in the new year, so really exciting to have someone else joining in that role. We also have a new communications lead that some of you might have met, so Claire Sim joining us from Dorset. She's come from Galapagos Conservation Trust, so has a really good kind of knowledge of NGO government relationships. I think she'll be a really valuable asset to the team. She was here for the last couple of days. So really great to have her in post as our communications lead, kind of trying to tie you all together as a community and finding out what you've got to say about the work you've been doing and how we can help to share that news. And some of you may also know that we have a vacant programme officer post at the moment, and that's kind of our post that really leads on the kind of synthesising the evidence and research from the science base to inform all of our briefings work around policy and practice. So that's a post that will be being advertised shortly. We also have our wonderful Peatland Code team. Obviously, many of you will be aware of our work on the Peatland Code, and that's headed up by Renee Coatley-Hermans, who is here today. And she's managing a team at the moment comprised of Garance, who is our development manager, leading mostly on our accreditation work at the moment for the code, and also Ed Salter, who's our kind of powerhouse in terms of getting the projects registered and the pipeline of Peatland Code projects coming through smoothly. Renee also touched on, I think, when she did her presentation on day one, the fact that we've just received funding for a biodiversity crediting manager. So that'll be an 18-month post that is live now. We have the advertisement out for that. That's been funded through Heritage Lottery funding and Scottish Government. So we will be trying to explore the opportunity for biodiversity crediting through the code in the very, very near future, and seeing what we can do, whether it ends up with being a stacked or bundled product for that. So we are an expanding team, although we're not hearing great numbers this morning. I will also gloss over, because you can't see our publications behind us. With this kind of new sort of powerhouse of a team and increasing numbers, we've been able to be much more productive recently. Now we're back up to capacity. And we've recently released a suite of briefings that I hope a lot of you have been able to see. So touching on aspects such as peatlands and development, principles for sustainable paludiculture, which we have a session on today, and Clifton will be giving a short overview of that document. And also a briefing around the lost peatlands, so accounting for peat depth and how the shallow areas of peatland are kind of being almost ignored in current policy, and how we could look to try and include those and champion those too. We also have, I suppose, a few bits of work in the pipeline. So I won't go into our whole work plan. I'd say probably about 50% of our work is planned. The other 50% is quite opportunistic, and obviously the policy landscape and the scientific evidence shifts quite frequently. There's a lot going on. So we try as a programme to respond to that. And I'd really appreciate kind of keeping that dialogue going with you as a community to try and sort of, understand from you what you need to help support your work and how we can adapt our sort of fluid work programme to help support that. But we do have a couple of sort of live calls for evidence at the moment. So the Peatland Code, you might be aware, was updated to version 2 earlier this year, and it included lowland fens for the first time. So kind of in an expansion of that work, we are hoping to be able to include lowland fen peatlands that are managed under paludiculture. But obviously you'll be aware it's a hugely novel area. We don't have a huge amount of data, and I suppose the code is underpinned by this sort of robust greenhouse gas data evidence base. So the core thing that we're looking to achieve from a call for evidence that we're putting out is to understand who is doing what and who is planning to do what. So for the trials that are out there at the moment, who is measuring greenhouse gas fluxes, organic matter content in soil, water inputs and outputs, water table depths, and kind of categorizing those sort of planning, productivity, harvesting regimes that are ongoing, and also trying to capture who is planning to do sort of imminent future research. Because I guess the idea is we're trying to capture what has already been achieved by the community, identify the gaps, and then work very closely with DEFRA and other governments to commission research to fill those gaps as rapidly as possible and get paludiculture included within the Peatland Code ASAP. We also have a remote sensing questionnaire that's live at the moment, so those of you that have subscribed to our newsletter will have seen that, and we've had a few responses coming in. So certainly the practitioners in the room might be really, really acutely aware. There's a lot of tech companies now getting interested in sort of digital assessment of peatlands, remote MRVs, and we're really trying to capture kind of what is going on in that space. I'm very, very aware that some of these techniques are really sort of almost ready to sort of run and be applied in the field, and others are maybe showing a little bit less promise but are being pitched as kind of, selling the world and being able to do everything. So we're working with Ben Clutterbuck from Nottingham University and Adrian Yallop to essentially interview the community and to find out what you're finding useful, what sort of tech approaches you're receiving, and what the tech companies themselves are kind of promising to do with the science that they have, and to try and distill that and understand, what is ready to be applied to peatlands and what can we confidently say using remote sensing. What does the science say is robust to apply from these modelling techniques, and what is a little bit more on sort of shaky, boggy ground at the moment. So that questionnaire is hoping to kind of distill into a briefing on remote sensing, and hopefully that will prove useful to many of you in the room.